What if the biggest threat to America in Lioness Season 3 isn't an enemy standing outside the country, but an enemy that has already been hiding inside? Episode 3 takes everything we thought we understood about Joe, Oleksandra, and the Russian operation and turns it into something much bigger. This episode isn't just about another CIA mission. It's about family, loyalty, psychological warfare, and a terrifying possibility. What if America's enemies have been manipulating the country from within for years? And by the end of the episode, we finally understand that the events we're watching aren't exactly what they seem. So let's break down Lioness Season 3, Episode 3, including the biggest revelations, Alexandra's warning, Joe's dangerous new strategy, and that shocking ending. The episode begins shortly after the devastating attack on Joe and her family. For Kate, the answer seems obvious. If Joe simply leaves the CIA, maybe the danger will finally disappear. Kate believes her mother has already sacrificed enough. She's been a soldier, a spy, and a mother trying to maintain a normal family life while constantly living with the possibility that someone could come after them. So Kate suggests the solution that Joe has been avoiding. Quit. Walk away from the CIA. Choose the family. On paper, it sounds like the perfect answer. But Joe knows something Kate doesn't. You can leave a job. You can't necessarily leave a war. Joe gathers her daughters and finally speaks to them with a level of honesty that we've rarely seen from her. She explains that the world isn't going to become safer simply because she decides to stop fighting. Evil doesn't retire. Evil doesn't take a day off. And if people like her stop standing between that threat and the people they're protecting, somebody else has to take their place. That's the heartbreaking reality Joe has accepted. She has already killed for the mission. She's already sacrificed parts of herself for it. And now she believes she may have to do it again. But this conversation changes something inside the Magnamera family. Joe's work is no longer an abstract danger that Neil and the girls can pretend isn't there. Now they understand exactly what their mother does. And then Joe makes the situation even more serious. She gives Neil a loaded pistol. Think about what that means. Joe isn't just returning to work. She's preparing her husband for the possibility that the people coming after her could come after him too. The family is now part of the battlefield. And while Joe is dealing with that crisis in America, thousands of miles away, another family is being used as a weapon. In Kiev, Kyle and Cruz are interrogating Oleksandra Balakin, the Ukrainian double agent who has been operating deep inside Russian intelligence. But there's a problem. Oleksandra is trained. She knows how interrogation works. She knows how to resist pain. Even chemical interrogation isn't necessarily enough to break someone who has spent years preparing for exactly this situation. So Kyle and Cruz changed the strategy. Instead of threatening Oleksandra directly, they put her family in danger. Her mother and sister are brought into a video situation where Oleksandra can see what could happen to them. And suddenly, the interrogation becomes something completely different. Oleksandra isn't simply being questioned. She's being forced to prove whether her family means more to her than her mission. It's one of the darkest moments of the episode because it mirrors Joe's own dilemma. Both women are soldiers. Both have families. And both understand the brutal rule of this world. A soldier's oath doesn't stop at the battlefield. Oleksandra eventually gives them something even more valuable than information. She gives them perspective. According to her, the CIA is playing an outdated game. America tells one lie to accomplish an objective, but Russia tells 10. Then it changes the objective and creates 10 more lies. The battlefield isn't just weapons anymore. It's information, misinformation, manipulation, fear, and infiltration. That's when Oleksandra delivers one of the biggest revelations in the episode. She knows who the people in the room are. She recognizes Cruz. She recognizes Carrillo. And she knows exactly who Joe is. Not just another CIA operative. Not just another officer. Joe is the Lioness. That moment should immediately raise a massive question. If Oleksandra knows this much about America's covert operations, how much does Russian intelligence already know? And the answer is terrifying. Oleksandra claims that Russian intelligence has been watching America's moves for years. The Americans may believe they're operating in secret. But from a Russian perspective, those secrets may not be secrets at all. She compares the world's major powers to animals. Russia is the wolf pack. China is the tiger. The bear is capable of destroying almost anything in its path. But that doesn't mean the bear can't be killed. And that's where her most disturbing warning comes in. Disease kills the bear. The meaning is much bigger than a military attack. Russia doesn't necessarily need to defeat America in a conventional war. Instead, the goal could be to weaken the country from inside, turn people against each other, manipulate officials, control information, exploit secrets, use blackmail, create divisions, and slowly damage the system until the strength of the country becomes a weakness. That's what makes this episode feel different from a normal spy thriller. Because suddenly, the enemy isn't simply outside the gates. The enemy may already be inside the building. And Oleksandra suggests that the infection reaches much farther than anyone in Joe's team realizes. Ordinary citizens could be compromised. Officials could be compromised. People inside positions of power could be compromised. And if that's true, then the CIA has a much bigger problem than finding one Russian spy. They have to figure out who they can actually trust. Joe understands the danger immediately, but instead of panicking, she creates a plan. And this is where the episode's political and espionage storyline takes another major turn. Joe proposes that the White House publicly announce that American counterintelligence has captured a Russian Foreign Intelligence Service agent operating on U.S. soil. But there's a catch. They don't reveal Alexandra's real identity. They don't expose her. Instead, they use the announcement as bait. The idea is simple but extremely dangerous. If Russia believes one of its agents has been captured, the people connected to that operation may start moving. They may try to protect themselves. They may contact other operatives. They may attempt to recover information. They may make mistakes. And every mistake could expose another piece of a network. Joe isn't simply trying to capture one enemy. She's trying to make the entire Russian intelligence operation react. Westfield approves the plan. Then the White House makes the announcement. A Russian intelligence agent has supposedly been captured on American soil. The world is suddenly watching. But then the episode pulls the rug out from underneath us. The sound of the press conference begins to fade. The camera moves backward. And we realize we're not simply watching the White House announcement. We're watching it on a television mounted in a room. And in that room, Joe is restrained. Water repeatedly drips onto her forehead. And suddenly, everything we've been watching takes on a completely different meaning. This is Joe's present. She's being psychologically tortured. The decisions we've just witnessed are being replayed in her mind. The mission, the attack, Oleksandra, the Russian network, the White House announcement, her family. Everything is now connected to the psychological torment Joe is experiencing. And this may be the biggest question episode 3 leaves us with. What is real? And what is Joe being forced to relive? The episode deliberately makes us question the timeline. Was everything we saw leading directly to Joe's capture? Was Joe's plan successful? Did the Russian network take the bait? And most importantly, what happened after that announcement? Because the fact that Joe is now restrained and being psychologically tortured suggests that something went horribly wrong. And that's where Lioness Season 3 Episode 3 becomes much more than a simple mission recap. Joe has spent her entire life believing that sacrifice is the price of protecting people. But now the consequences have reached her family. Neil has a weapon in his hands. Her daughters know the truth about her work. Oleksandra has revealed that America's enemies may have infiltrated the system from within. And Joe herself is now a prisoner, forced to mentally revisit the decisions that brought her there. The biggest twist isn't simply that Joe has been captured. It's that the enemy may understand her mind almost as well as they understand her operations. And if they can manipulate what she remembers, what she believes, and what she fears, then Joe's greatest weapon, her ability to make decisions under pressure, could become her greatest vulnerability. That's why the ending matters so much. The dripping water isn't just torture. It's a reminder that Joe is trapped between the past and the present. Every decision she made to protect America may now be turned against her. And Alexandra's warning about the bear suddenly becomes even more important. Because if the enemy really has been poisoning America from within, Joe isn't fighting a single spy network anymore. She's fighting an invisible war where she can't always tell friend from enemy. And that could be the real danger heading into the next episode. Lioness Season 3 Episode 3 leaves us with one terrifying possibility. Joe may have spent years hunting the enemy, without realizing the enemy was already hunting her. And if Oleksandra was telling the truth, the Russian operation could be much larger than Joe, Kyle, Cruz, or the CIA ever imagined. The question now isn't simply whether Joe can escape. It's whether she can figure out who betrayed her, how deep the infiltration goes, and whether the mission that destroyed her family was actually part of a much bigger trap. Because in the world of Lioness, the most dangerous weapon isn't always a gun. Sometimes, it's knowing exactly what someone loves and using it against them.